Great to be with you tonight. Thanks for spending your Sunday evening with us. Tonight is the last regular Sunday evening that we're going to gather together for 2018, which is kind of sad and kind of weird because it's like the middle of the month, and I'm trying to come to terms with it. Next Sunday, as Laura mentioned, we'll be gathering at our house for a open house. We've done this for 10 years since we got married. We've been doing this open house on Christmas Eve, the 23rd of December. And this coming Sunday, it happens to fall, the 23rd happens to fall on a Sunday this year. And as the pastor of this church, I reserve the right to cancel our service anytime I want to have people at my house, which is exactly what we're doing next week. So you're all invited. That's a real invitation. We absolutely love hosting this every single year, and we get to know people better at this event. We meet people for the first time every single year, so please invite friends and family. Actually, the first time I met Laura Cooper was at this event several years ago at a different house. We invited some friends who were friends with her family, and so all 15 of the Cooper kids, or the Schultz kids at the time, sorry, Schultz, yeah, right? Stephen's like, wait a minute, foreshadowing maybe, I don't know, okay. The Schultz kids came in and begrudgingly hung out with us on Christmas Eve several years ago. It's a great time, so please join us for that. The following night, on Monday night, we're going to be over at the Gothic Theater. And I know that Laura's already talked about all this, but I'm just reiterating because I know some of you, when she was talking, were thinking like, well, but my mom does this thing every Christmas Eve, and I have to be at that thing. And I think it's time for you as a grown adult to say, Mom, we're going to the Gothic Theater, and also I'm moving out of your basement. And then that's a lot for your mom to handle, so you should buy your mom flowers. She just, that's a lot of information for her. Gothic Theater and you're moving out. That's a whole lot. So we would love to see you that night as well. And then the following Sunday, which is the 30th, we always take that Sunday off. And that's for you a little bit because we want you to have time with friends and family, but it's a lot for my family, actually, because by that time, we need a break. We're here 51 Sundays out of the year. I mean, we miss a few for vacations and things, but this happens 51 Sundays out of the year. And we absolutely love leading this and leading this church. We consider it a deep privilege and honor to be a part of that, but it's also exhausting. And so the 30th is a chance for us to take a break and relax a little bit. And we'll be back here on January 6th, beginning our Epiphany season together. So tonight we find ourselves kind of at the end, sort of in the middle of our Advent season, because really next Monday on Christmas Eve is when we wrap up Advent. And we've been going through what we call the Canticles of Luke throughout this season. Canticles are like songs or poems or declarations or chants of some kind that are said by a religious organization over the course of a really long period of time on a regular basis. So for us as a church, the canticles, if you will, that we use are like the Lord's Prayer and the doxology and the prayers of the people. And some of the songs that we sing regularly, these are kind of like canticles for us. Whether these songs kind of throughout the first couple chapters of Luke, sung or cited or said by different people throughout the book, throughout those chapters, and we're focusing on those throughout this season. The first week was the Fiat Mihi. All of these have a Latin title, said by Mary. It's these 9 powerful words where she says, let it be unto me as you have said, which took a tremendous amount of faith and courage for someone her age. Maybe because of her age, she was able to say those things, but her receptivity to the Christ, growing within her, the gestation of the Christ, and her receptivity to that is wrapped up in those words. Last week, the pastor of TNL, Phil, was here, and he talked about the Magnificat, which is a lengthier prayer or song that Mary sings when she's with her cousin Elizabeth, and it's just filled with joy. She's just filled with joy and excitement and praise and blessing towards God because she gets to facilitate the growth of Christ and the development of Christ. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a prayer or a song called the Benedictus, and next week at Christmas Eve, we'll talk about the Gloria. Tonight, the Benedictus, you can imagine that that's where we get the word benediction. So like at the end of the service, we have a benediction every single week, and in your mind, you might think, well, that's how you close something down because that's how we do it every week, and so it must mean closure of some kind, but it really means blessing. And more than that, it means blessing with a commission, like blessing, sending you out. That's why we do that every week, because we want to bless you, but we also want to send you out with some motivation, with some inspiration, and some encouragement. And so that's exactly what this prayer does. And it's spoken by a man named Zechariah. And before Kevin comes up to read the song that he sings, I want to tell you a little bit about this guy. So at the beginning of the book of Luke, we are introduced to a character named Elizabeth and a character named Zechariah. And they're married to each other, and they're a little bit older, and they have come to terms with the fact that they are infertile. They cannot have children. And add to that the fact that they are also fairly old. And so even if they were not infertile biologically. They're probably too old to be having children. Now, that's a heavy thing for us to deal with even now in a modern world in 2018. And not having children, whether it's for infertility or for other reasons, is a heavy thing to carry. But in the first century, it actually brought a ton of shame upon your family, mostly because you were not able to carry on the family name. And so Elizabeth and Zechariah had kind of dealt with this, and they had sort of just accepted this. Zechariah was a priest at the time, and so he was in charge of lighting incense in the temple and leading in songs and prayers and things. And one time when he was doing that, the angel Gabriel appeared to him, presumably the same angel that appeared to Mary, and said, "Your wife is going to be with child. You're going to have a son, and his name is going to be John." Well, Zechariah is kind of struck with fear, but in addition to that, he responds with doubt and hesitancy. It's a drastic contrast to the way that Mary, this young woman, responds with receptivity and openness, saying, "Let it be unto me as you have said." Zechariah says, "How can I be sure? I mean, don't you know that we're infertile and we're kind of old? Like, how could this possibly be for us?" And Gabriel causes him to be mute from that point until the birth of his son. For the next 9 months, he's not able to really perform his job in the temple the way he's supposed to. His relationships with, in his marriage, with his neighbors, they're all affected by the fact that he all of a sudden cannot speak for 9 months because of his hesitation and because of his doubt. The angel Gabriel causes him to be mute. And so the words that Kevin is about to read, these words are actually the first words that he speaks after not having spoken for that long. And it is called the Benedictus.
Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, because he has come to his people and redeemed them. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he said through his holy prophet of long ago. Salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our ancestors and to remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore to our father Abraham, to rescue us from the hand of our enemies and to enable us to serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all our days. And you, my child, will be called a prophet of the Most High, for you will go on before the Lord to prepare the way for him, to give his people the knowledge of salvation through the forgiveness of their sins, because of the tender mercy of our God, by which the rising sun will come to us from heaven, to shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the path of peace. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. There's a little scene, a little interaction that I feel like it's important to describe right before this happens. They're in the delivery room or delivery space. I don't really know where people delivered babies, but they're in that area, and there are family and neighbors and friends around, and they say, "So the name of the child will be Zechariah, right?" to Elizabeth. And Elizabeth says, "No, his name will be John." And they're all shocked. They're like, "No way, because this is your shot. Like, this is your one chance to carry on the family name. You thought it was impossible, and now you get your chance, and you're going to name him John? Like, where did that come from? That's not in our family line. That's not important to your family. That's not his father's name. Why would you name him John?" And they give Zechariah a tablet, and they say, "Could you just write down the name that you want your son to be on this tablet?" And he writes down the name John. And in his obedience in that moment, he is sort of reinstated, if you will, and given the ability to speak again. And he sings these words. And these words are a blessing. And these words are about his son a little bit, but mostly about Jesus. It's mostly about what Jesus will do and how Jesus will interact with mankind and what Jesus will bring into the world when he comes. And interestingly enough, as important and as significant as that was in the first century, I think that the words are just as, if not more so, significant for us now in 2018. Specifically at the very end, it says this: "Because of the tender mercy of our God, by which the rising sun will come to us from heaven to shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the paths of peace." I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like the days are dark, literally this time of year, but also figuratively, right? And maybe it's just the 24/7 news cycle, and maybe evil is not increasing, but it just seems as though the days are dark. Stories of shootings and war and terrorism and starvation, xenophobia, racism, hate, theft, assault, rape, abuse, fires, earthquakes, and riots fill our news feeds on a regular basis. And this time of year when we're talking about peace and joy and hope, these really heavy things seem to be a bit heavier, to me at least. It seems like the days are dark. It seems like maybe they're even getting darker. And so these words about light coming into the darkness, about the sun shining and guiding our feet into the paths of peace, seem extremely timely in this moment and starkly contrasted to what we experience on a regular basis. There's no doubt that our world, our neighbors, our workplaces, our family, and our church need a message of hope this time of year, and maybe this year especially. That we need a message of light, that we need a message of levity, that we need a message that brings light into the darkness, maybe now more than ever before. The message of Advent is, and always has been this: the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. A lot has been made over the implications of the incarnation and the significance of the incarnation over the years, and you maybe have heard some of these things. And there's probably a wide variety of beliefs, even in this room, about what is the significance of the arrival of Jesus. Like, what does it even mean, and who even cares to some people? And to other people, it's everything, and it's all that really matters, is this fact that Jesus came into the world. But rest assured that something we can probably all get on board with is that it means at least this: light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. This is the meaning of the good news. It's the meaning of the incarnation, the miracles, the teaching, the ordinary daily life of Jesus, the conversations, the friendships, the meals, the crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension, and the return of Jesus. As we sit here between the Advents, the first coming and the second coming, it is true and will remain true that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There's this Advent daily reading that I read every single year. It's my favorite one. It's called Watch for the Light. And it's kind of heavy reading, but it's really beautiful and really powerful. And it kind of brings together some of the best works on Advent that I've ever read, at least. It's so good that the introduction is worth quoting. So I'm going to read a bit from the introduction here. It says this: "The love that descended to Bethlehem is not the easy sympathy of an avuncular God, but a burning fire whose light chases away every shadow, floods every corner, and turns midnight into noon. This love reveals sin and overcomes it. It conquers darkness with such forcefulness and intensity that it scatters the proud, humbles the mighty, feeds the hungry, and sends the rich away empty-handed." This light that has come into the darkness is more powerful than the darkness itself. It will remain, it will last, it will not be worn out, and it will not be overcome. This light is pervasive. It floods every corner of this room, every corner of your soul, every corner of your school, every corner of your place of work, every corner of this world, and there's nobody outside of its grasp or its reach. I, for one, if I were to be honest, have written off a lot of people. And I've written off a lot of institutions, and I've written off a lot of opportunities as being lost causes. But I believe wholeheartedly, at least right here, right now, while I'm reading these notes, that the light has come into the darkness and the darkness has not overcome it, meaning that it is so pervasive and so powerful that it overwhelms and overcomes any of my preconceived notions or any of the things that I have believed about people or even myself. And so tonight I want you to know that this is the message of Advent. And I think that actually you maybe know it better than anybody else that I know. And this is how I know that. As the year has come to a close, I've been thinking about kind of what's happened with our church and our neighborhood over the past year. I've been just sort of like reflecting on some of those things. And I came up with a list that would take me an hour at least to unpack if I was going to unpack everything. This small church has accomplished more than any church I've ever been a part of. I mean that. Not necessarily quantitatively, but certainly qualitatively. The work that our church has done over this year is remarkable, and it has been an example of light coming into the darkness and the darkness not overcoming it. This past year, we hosted a debate for a special election for city council. Our 3 candidates stood right up here. I stood over there and moderated, and that was a gift to 75 neighbors who came, not to mention the people who listened to it online. We hosted a voter information night, which was a gift to the voters in Colorado who had a very large ballot in front of them. And we went item by item down that list to talk about the things that would equip you to be a better voter. This last Saturday, we participated in what we call the Bishop Christmas Tour. We partner with a church called Journey down in Castle Rock. We take care of 2 schools, one up here in Inglewood and one down in Castle Rock. It takes over 200 volunteers to pull this off, and over 250 families get to shop at that store and buy gifts at an affordable price for their kids. This year, one of the best things that happened was a couple of our neighbors came and they walked because they live really close by, and they bought more gifts than they could carry back, and we had a wagon because that's how I haul my kids around. And so I said, hey, how about I just put the gifts in the wagon and we'll walk you home. And for like 3 or 4 neighbors, I got to walk all the way to their house. And for some of them, I got to walk into their house and actually put the gifts under the Christmas tree. It was as close to being Santa as I ever will be, and it was amazing. But the work that you did to pull that off was a gift to this parish. It was a gift to this neighborhood. You've attended and prayed for and been present at city council meetings all throughout the year. The way that this church, this little church, responded to the flood that took place in this community over the summer was spectacular. And I would argue that it was more important and maybe more significant, or at least more integrated in the neighborhood than any of the work that any other church did in this neighborhood. I have no problem bragging about you and talking about the work that you've done. One of our table groups has started volunteering with the Severe Weather Shelter Network, which literally keeps people alive in our neighborhood throughout the winter. Many of you participated in things that Change the Trend has put together to care for our most vulnerable neighbors. You've participated and hosted and put together block parties for your neighbors to get to know them and care for their needs. You all participated, many of you participated in the neighborhood rehab project to make our neighbors' homes safe, dry, and warm before winter. And then afterwards, we all had a great time at the block party down on Broadway. I've heard story after story about you befriending and caring for neighbors in their times of need, times of darkness for them, and you have brought light and levity into those situations. Many of you have joined table groups, and in doing so, you've been able to get to know about some of the challenges that your friends, neighbors, parishioners, people that you know are facing, and you've brought light into those experiences. This worship gathering has grown significantly this year, and it's partly because you see the benefit of gathering with other people on a regular basis and singing songs and praying prayers and listening to teaching and getting to know each other. And many of you are in this room because somebody that was in this room prior to invited you to come. They said, something else is happening over here. You should come and see this, or you should come be a part of this. And that's why you're here tonight. Another thing that this church has done that has brought great light into this community is the way that you have given financially this year. It is incredible. I wish I had real-time numbers for right now, but the tithing that has taken place in this small community has greatly exceeded our expectations for the year. I mean, it's been an absolutely humbling thing to get, like every single month we get these numbers, and I'm looking at mine going like, I cannot believe that God continues to provide in this way. The way that you've contributed to the Christmas campaign or are thinking about contributing to the Christmas campaign, what an amazing way to give of yourself and to say, even my finances belong to God and I want Him to use them. The way you've cared for the vulnerable and cared for each other, the way you've shared prayers during terrible experiences in our nation or around the world, the way that you've cared for each other is absolutely amazing. You have been the embodiment of light coming into the darkness and the darkness not overcoming it. You see, I'm convinced that we get to kind of take on the same role as this person that Zechariah was saying the song to. You see, the song is very much about Jesus, but he's singing this song to his newborn son. His son's name is John, and he would later be known as John the Baptist. John the Baptist, whose express purpose was to prepare the way for the Lord. And we, as we're going from one Advent to the next, because we believe he's coming back, we get to do the same thing. We get to prepare the way for the Lord. We get to prepare the way by bringing light into dark places. And being in dark places is hard, by the way. It's exhausting, and you feel lonely, and sometimes it feels like you're hitting your head up against a wall over and over and over again. But believe me when I say that this year, and I believe in next year and the year following, and for hopefully many, many years after that, this church has and will continue to bring light into dark places, and the darkness will not overcome it. I believe that. Sojourner Truth said, I will not allow my life's light to be determined by the darkness around me. That is my hope and my prayer for you, is that you will not allow the darkness around you to be the thing that shapes you or molds you or guides you or influences you, but rather you would be guided by light, and you would bring that light into some of the darker places in our world. whether it's with one individual at work or in your neighborhood, or whether it's with a larger group of people. My hope is that you bring light with you everywhere that you go. You see, I think that we hold this light. We bear the light. You bear the light. You hold it. Like, think about it as like a thing, like a tangible thing that's in your pocket right now. You get to take it with you, and it's something you can choose to give to somebody, or it's something you can choose to keep to yourself. The message of Advent is that the light has come into the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it, and you get to be that advocate. You get to be the one that bears the light. You get to be John the Baptist, if you will, between the Advents, preparing the way for Jesus to return. Normally we end the teaching time with me just sort of praying for us, but I thought it might be a good time to pray through our prayers for Advent, our weekly prayers. We have a prayer for each week. They're printed on the back of the series card. They're also on our website. We have a prayer for hope, a prayer for peace, a prayer for joy, and a prayer for love. And the first line of each of these prayers will be very familiar to you because I've said it like 100 times tonight. I'm going to read that line, and then I would ask that you would read the next part with me. It'll be clearly marked and in italics on the screen. And that's how we'll end our teaching for tonight. Week 1, hope. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We are easily distracted by the darkness that comes with unease and anxiety. Source of light, shine in our lives and in your world with your renewing hope. Week 2, peace. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We are easily distracted by the darkness of force and power, and we often choose strife and turmoil. Source of light, shine in our lives and in your world with your everlasting peace. Week 3, joy. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We are easily distracted by the darkness of despair or pessimism. Source of light, shine in our lives and in your world with your life-giving joy. Week 4, love. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We are easily distracted by the darkness of isolation and fear. Source of light, shine in our lives and in your world with your unending love. Amen.